Gather round, internet, and I will tell you a tale of mystery, intrigue, wonderment, space monsters, four-fingered men, thrills, chills, spills, daffodils. Well, not daffodils. It's The Four-Fingered Man, Gateway book number 1 by Cerberus Jones, aka me and David and Rowan, and I'm going to read some to you now. In the last moments before dawn, a man in a black trench coat slipped out from the shadow of the old hotel. The grass was wet against his legs, and the silence around him was broken only by the distant crash of waves against the cliffs below. He hurried. If anyone was watching, they would have noticed how heavily his coat sat across his shoulders, how his back stooped under the weight, and how the bulging pockets bumped against his legs with every step. They may even have seen when, unnoticed by him, a small glinting object and a flurry of eucalyptus leaves fell from the man's pocket and landed in the long grass. But no one was watching. Not even the sound of birds broke the spell as he stepped into a grove of ancient magnolia trees and disappeared into their shadows. He was a tall man, but so thin and angular that the leaves hardly crackled under his feet. As he walked, his hands kept straying to his pockets, patting them gently as though reassuring himself that his cargo was still safe. Hidden in the clearing beyond the magnolias was an old tin-roofed cottage, so run down and shabby it was really more of a shack. The man slowed, looking around carefully, before stepping out from the trees and striding towards the cottage. Before his hand reached the door, it swung open from inside, and a scowling face with a mess of grey hair appeared through the gap. "Where have you been?" The man in the coat hurried inside, brushing past the grey-haired man, who locked and bolted the door behind them. "You're late," the grey-haired man grumbled. "Nonsense. My connection shall arrive momentarily." "It should have arrived already. According to my charts." "Your charts are wrong, Tom," said the man in the coat, "and they're only going to get worse. I, on the other hand..." He paused as a deep shudder ran through the cottage, rattling the windows. "Am right on time." Tom opened his mouth and closed it again, a look of frustration passing over his face. The cottage shuddered a second time, and a deep groan came from the far room. Or, not from the room, somehow the sound came from under it. Tom's eyes narrowed. "Show off." Then he held out a weathered hand. "Give it to me." The man in the coat nodded and put a hand to his throat. No, not to his throat. Somehow he slid the tips of his fingers into his throat and felt around inside his own neck. There was a clicking sound, a fizz, and the man's face flickered as he delicately plucked a small black and bronze cylinder out of his neck. The moment he dropped it into Tom's hand, the moment his own fingers lost contact with the object, the man in the coat was no longer a man. He still wore the trench coat, but his pale skin and black hair had vanished, replaced by the glittering metallic blue shell of an insect. His long white fingers had become the curved black hooks of a beetle, and iridescent wings twitched beneath his coat. Tom scowled at him, and then at the device in his hand. "Hey, this isn't mine. Where's the one I gave you?" The insect patted its coat pockets and chittered, clattering its mandibles. "Fine, fine. You don't have time to worry about that. You don't have to convince me that the Kruskin issue is more important. But you do realise the new owners arrived today. Last thing I need is for them to find any clues that you've been here." The insect started to move towards the other room, picking its way through a bizarre clutter of broken cuckoo clocks, wind-up toys and stacks of leather-bound books. A gust of hot air swept through the cottage, and that terrible, abysmal groan sounded again. "It's here," said Tom. "Go on." "Not that you've ever been bothered to wait for a connection before," he added in a mutter. The insect buzzed harshly. "No, I'm not asking any questions. Just go." The room beyond the doorway was empty. Bare floorboards amplified the noise of the insect's feet as it scuttled over to the hole in the far corner of the room. That hot, rank wind blew again, gusting up the stone steps that disappeared into the darkness beneath the cottage floor. Then, as though giant lungs were hidden down there somewhere, the wind turned and sucked back down the stairwell. Tom was still standing in the other room, clinging so tightly to the edge of his desk that his knuckles were white. The knuckles he had, anyway. One of his fingers was missing, a shiny patch of scar tissue in the gap. The insect gathered up its coat and scurried down the steps. There was the sound of a door opening, a stronger smell of sour air, and then a flash of light, and the door banged closed. Tom sagged against his desk in relief. Gone. That was a little bit of The Four-Fingered Man by Cerberus Jones. If you would like to read more of this book, it is available in all good bookstores. There are links below where you can order a copy for yourself and those that you love. And if you would like to hear another excerpt of merriment and wonderment, you can watch my next video, which is all about Book 2, The Warriors of Brynhask.